Okay, so I am now recording the session, and as I said, I'm going to attempt to archive this and put it up on YouTube. Does not always work, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is begin showing my screen. Okay, so you should all see what I see on what my desktop looks like, which right now is an incredible mess. So if you can see my screen, which is got the backdrop of Castaway Cay in the Bahamas, Disney's private island, go ahead and type I can see your screen, or yes, I can see it in the chat window. Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Final Draft. We're going to begin this session by talking about formatting for a screenplay. And then I'll begin to answer some other questions that you might have and talk a little bit about your thesis ideas. Okay. So I'm going to bring up Final Draft. Now Final Draft is actually up. So I'm going to bring up a new document in Final Draft. So I'm going to click on New. And that brings up a blank page. That is, it says Untitled Screenplay. And this is what it basically looks like. And before I go into a little bit about how we're going to format a screenplay here, and I'm actually going to write a screenplay live right here in front of you, I want to show you some of the other templates that they have on Final Draft. So if you go to New from Stationery, you have other templates. You have graphic novel templates. You have script templates, including stage plays. I use Final Draft to write my stage plays and my teleplays. You have text documents if you need to use to write a treatment, or you can write a novel in it, or a text document. And you have TV templates for various TV shows and network shows. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to begin with just general screenwriting, because your assignment for week 3 and week 4 is writing a short screenplay in my class. However, some of you are going to move into TV and you'll be using a different template. I do want to make sure that I stress that in TV writing, there is a general standard template, but then each network seems to have its own kind of formatting. So just be aware that even though we'll be showing you the general way to write a TV show, each network seems to have its own way of doing things. You just got to be open to change and know that not all rules are set in stone when you're writing for TV. In writing for screenplays, it's a little bit more set in stone. Some producers and agents and production companies have various preferences. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you basically the standard. Okay. Now, Final Draft is a really easy program to use once you get the hang of it. It just is going to take some getting used to. And I know a lot of you have already had some experience with Final Draft, and that's great. It's just going to take some practice. Okay. So let's just look at what we see on the screen here. We've got we've got someone new who's typing away on the keyboard. By the way, I'm muting everyone as they come in, because if I don't do that, we have this cacophony of sounds. And it's quite difficult to, pay attention. Okay, so I'm going to begin with what we see on the screen here. We've got the Untitled Screenplay document. If you look down at the bottom where my cursor is, we've got it set to 100%. You can, of course, change the size of the text and everything, but we're seeing 100% of the screen. It says no scene here, and then we have this little thing here called scene heading. This is the element drop-down menu, okay? And if I click on the little drop-down, it gives me all of the different various elements. Now, the elements are the different parts of the screenplay, okay? We begin with the scene heading. You've got action, you've got character, so on and so forth. Let me see if I can turn up my sound here a little bit. Okay. I'm not sure why you're not getting all of the sound. Maybe turn up your, you said your volume's up. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not the tech person. If you can't hear it, hopefully this will be archived and we can, and you can at least hear it on the archive. Okay, so just to, I'm going to bring up Microsoft Word here so I can also type notes. Oh, and by the way, some of you might be using earphones. I'm not speaking into earphones right now, and I'm not using earphones. It's going to be easier for you just to speak directly into the, just speak like normal, take off the earphones, unplug them, Vanna says she called in from her phone, so that might be easier, and then she can just watch what's happening on the screen. That might be a tactic also. I found that using the earphones is just, it messes things up, and for some reason the USB ports don't completely cooperate, whatever. So just kind of play around with it, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to keep some notes on this Microsoft Word document here, and at the end of the session I will email them to all of you. So let's go back here to the screenplay document, okay? And I'm going to actually go ahead and just write the beginning of a short screenplay here, okay? So we're going to begin with EXT. So all I did literally here, you can't see what I'm typing on the keyboard, but you see that the Smart Type menu came up here, and that's going to happen. By the way, I'm using Final Draft 8. I haven't updated to Final Draft 9. You guys all have Final Draft 9. It's very similar. They haven't really changed much. Okay, so EXT, okay, period. And now that stands for exterior. EXT is exterior, INT is interior. You will only ever use those two. I mean, you might use interior / exterior, but that's fine, whatever. Okay, so let's see where we're gonna be. Exterior soccer stadium day. Okay. Now, let's look at what happened here. I got to the day and I hit enter or return. And down here at the bottom, the element automatically changed to action. Okay. Exterior soccer stadium day. So I'm going to hit enter again. It dropped down to action. Now let's talk a little bit about this line here. This is known as the scene heading, also known as the slug line. Scene heading / slug line. You might also call it the location line. Okay, scene heading, slug line, location line. Okay. Now, in that slug line, you're going to begin with either the interior or the exterior. Proceed to the location, and then give the time of day. And it needs to be punctuated like this. EXT period soccer stadium dash day. And if it were night, you would say night. Okay, now let's say I want to give a more specific location. This is a very specific soccer stadium. Okay, if I need to give a more specific location, I might say exterior soccer stadium, Orlando, Florida, day. Okay, so we have the smaller location here moving to the bigger location, and then day. If there were a title to the soccer stadium, like it were the Raymond James Soccer Stadium, that's how it'd look. Okay, so let's just say, yeah, soccer stadium, Orlando, Florida, day. Okay, so I'm going to use myself as a character, Alan, comma, we'll say 30s. I don't know how someone would describe him. We'll say athletic. Okay, so Alan, 30s, an athletic guy wearing a purple soccer jersey and shorts stands outside. We'll say, looking at his watch. Okay, now you probably don't need to say outside because it already says exterior. So actually, let's just cut that. All right, so here's what's going on. I've introduced a character. When you introduce a character for the first time in the action line only, the character's name gets all caps. So let me write that note down here. When introducing a character, his, her, or its name gets all caps in the description only, and only the first time the audience sees him or her. Okay. Let's say action lines. Okay. What I followed this up with is a short one-sentence character description. Do not let your descriptions of characters exceed one, maybe two sentences tops. Okay? Short and sweet. Action lines should not go on for longer than 4 lines. Not 4 sentences, 4 lines. Okay? Now, notice how short and sweet that is. We have the image of this guy standing outside the stadium wearing a purple soccer jersey looking at his watch. Why is he looking at his watch? That is his behavior. Okay? That is the thing that we know. He is looking at his watch because either someone is late, or he is late, or he's waiting to see when the game is going to begin. Okay? So what I've given here is a short description and a defining action. Introduce characters with a short description and a defining action. The other thing I want to point out here is that all action lines must always be written in the present tense. Always. And because this is visual storytelling, you must only include in the action lines what can be seen or heard. Only things that can be seen or heard. No descriptions about what the character is thinking. No descriptions about what something smells like. No abstract descriptions about someone running late. Okay. Notice I did not say he is waiting for someone who is running late. No, looking at his watch. The behavior indicates exactly what is going on. Okay. And then if we need to know that someone's late, we'll see someone running up. Only visual descriptions. Nothing abstract, nothing internal. Okay. Only include descriptions that can be seen or heard. Why do you think that is? If you think you know why that is, please type the answer in the chat window. Only include descriptions that can be seen or heard. Thank you, Nikki. You cannot see thoughts. We cannot see thoughts. Remember, you are writing a movie. This is a movie. Someone's going to sit in the theater. It's completely visual writing. Absolutely, Eliza. Yes. Yes, you cannot assume what someone is feeling, Robin. Yes. But the big thing here is that we cannot see the thoughts. There needs to be some kind of a visual cue for the audience to know that someone is running late. Someone is running toward Alan who is looking at his watch. Okay, that's how we know that someone is running late. Not, Alan is waiting for someone who is running late. That doesn't tell us anything. Okay. No smells. If you describe a smell, I'm going to come down hard on you because think about what you're writing. Okay, you're writing a movie. You can't smell things in the movie theater, you know. And I've actually been a judge for screenwriting competitions before, and I will come across that occasionally. I'm like, are you serious? Like, the only time that might be appropriate is if you're writing like a theme park 4D ride. Like at Universal Studios, we have like Shrek 4D where you can actually smell things because it's a special effect. But that is a really, really isolated example. So no smells. There's no smell-o-vision in the movie theater. No internal thoughts. Nothing about no touch or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to introduce the second character, Kevin, 30s. Oh, he's 20s. Sorry, that's my boyfriend, actually. He's not 30 yet. Also wears, let's say, Kevin runs toward Alan wearing the same jersey and shorts. Okay, so what we've indicated here is Kevin is wearing the exact same thing, and he's running, which means that he is probably late because Alan was looking at his watch. Okay, notice I did not have to say Kevin is running late. Alan is probably very angry about this. No. Okay, so he stops and pants. Doubled over. Okay, so now I hit enter, and it brings me down, and it brings me to another action line here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make this, because I need to indicate that dialogue is going to begin, I'm going to change the element to character first, because I need to indicate the character that's speaking. So I'm going to have Kevin speak first. Okay, and I'm not holding down the shift key because Final Draft automatically knows that this name is going to be in all caps. Okay, I'm going to hit return / enter, and look at what happened. It automatically brought it down to dialogue. It automatically changed the element. Okay, so the dialogue that Kevin is going to say here is traffic. Alan is going to say, okay, so now notice what I did. I hit enter. It brought me to action, and I want to change that to to character again. So what I'm going to actually do, instead of going to the drop-down menu and clicking on character, what I'm going to actually do is just hit enter, and the little smart type menu comes up, the elements menu comes up, and I'm going to actually hit character, click on character, or you can hit the letter C if you saw the smart type there, C for character. Okay, so Alan, I hit return, it automatically brought me to dialogue. Alan's going to say again. Notice that he's going to say again, period, not again, question mark. Seriously this time. Okay, so what does this indicate about the relationship between Kevin and Alan? And mind you, this is not what my relationship actually is like. Well, it kind of is. But traffic, and Alan says again, Kevin says seriously this time. So what does this tell us about Kevin? Just from the dialogue. You can type the answer in the chat window. Great. Kevin is chronically late. Yes, he's been late before, Elizabeth says. He's always late, never on time. Absolutely. Good. So, yeah, they're probably very close because they can talk like this to each other. He's always late with excuses. Good. Notice I did not need to explain any of that in the description. I did not need to explain any of that in the dialogue. You got that just from 3 lines, literally 6 words. So we know exactly what's going on here. Okay? So traffic, again, seriously this time. So Alan's going to say, oh, look at what happened. So when I hit enter, it brought me down to action. I'm going to actually hit the tab key, and Final Draft automatically remembers the character because this is like a little exchange here. It automatically defaults to who the next character is. And if you had 3 characters, obviously you can type over it, but I'm going to hit return. I don't even have to type Alan's name. Okay, so Alan's going to say, did you bring the tickets? Kevin's going to say, okay, so actually let me have Kevin dig in his pocket. Wait a second. Alan says. And then Kevin's going to say, wait a second. Are you serious? Kevin's going to say, okay, Kevin's just going to pull him out. Okay, so here's our little scene here. Traffic, again, seriously this time? Did you bring the tickets? Wait a second. Are you serious? Bam, Kevin pulls out the tickets. Okay? So they've got a little joking kind of relationship. They go inside. So Okay, so now I want to change scenes to inside the soccer stadium. So let me make sure I'm back at scene heading. Notice it did not default to scene heading, so I need to manually change that. Smart type menu, go up to scene heading, interior, whoop, soccer stadium, Orlando, Florida. Notice the smart type menu remembered that, and it's still day. Now, if it's the same kind of location, you only really need to indicate day the first time until it changes. But the old school way of doing it is to indicate the time of day with every scene heading. So I'm going to do that just because this is sort of the first class you're taking with it. Okay, so interior soccer stadium, Orlando, Florida, day. Alan looks at his ticket number. Kevin leads the way. Okay, they come upon. Okay, let's say they find their seats and find that they're taken. Two schmoes, two douches. Two douches Okay, so two douchebags, 20s, sit in their seats, munching on nachos. Okay. Alan says, "Excuse me, these are ours." Douchebag number one, get the hell out of here. Okay, so you see what's going on here. We have a different location. They're obviously not having a good time at the soccer stadium. And obviously there's probably going to be a fight happening here. Okay, so that's basically the gist of it. Let me show you a little bit about what's going on here. Some of the other things I haven't gotten around showing you yet are if you were to use the parenthetical. Like, for example, if this line were sarcastic and you were not able to tell that the line were sarcastic, you would hit enter and change this to parenthetical. So the parentheses will show up right here, and you would type in something like sarcastic. Now, or sarcastically. Only use the parentheticals if the tone of the line is unclear. So let's include that as a rule here. Okay. So, if it's like Alan sadly, if the line already reads as sad, then there's no reason to say that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of actors think of that as sort of over directing the actor. That's really the director's job on set. So don't worry about that. Only include the tone of the line if it's unclear. Like if it were unclear that this line were sarcastic, then I would say yeah, sarcastically. If it were unclear that a line were really supposed to be sad, then you might want to say sadly. Other than that, really no reason for it. Okay. If these two lines were spoken at the same time, let's say Alan and Kevin's line is here. Wait a second, are you serious? If these lines were spoken at the same time, you might go up here to Format, go down here to Dual Dialogue, and it makes it Dual Dialogue. Okay? Try to only have no more than two people speaking at the same time, because I've seen people try to do like four lines of dual dialogue, and it looks ridiculous, and it's a little confusing. Okay. Some of the other bells and whistles here with Final Draft, you can save to PDF, which we'll get to. I'll show you that in a second. You have your standard copy paste, everything like that. You have your different views here. You've got normal view, page view. You've got script notes if you're going to use script notes, which I don't really use too often. I really probably should. It might be easier for me to grade things. Index cards, if you want to use the index cards like Blake Snyder does, where you organize it by scene and so on and so forth, you can do that. You can do it where the lines appear on the index cards also. I'm going to undo that. No, I want to go back to the script. Okay, you can change your element the long hard way up here. You've got spacing if you need to change the spacing, which you really shouldn't. You shouldn't be changing the font. You shouldn't be changing the style, so on and so forth, because the standard default font of Courier is the font you want to use. Document. I'll show you title page in just a second in case you want to use any of this stuff here. Tools, you've got your thesaurus, your spelling. You have your reports if you need to do, if you're going into production on this and you want to do location report or a scene report, you can generate these reports. Scene numbers and adding and omitting scene numbers. If you were to do that, you should not be submitting a script in my class using screen number or scene numbers. The only time you would use scene numbers is if you were going into production. Revisions mode you are going to use later in the program when you are making revisions to your thesis scripts, but really no need for them right now. Okay, let me show you a couple of other things screenplay-wise that you will likely come across very early in the program. The first thing is if a character is on the phone. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. If a character is on the phone, like Alan's phone rings, and we don't see the other person on the other line, then you just say, Alan's phone rings, he answers. You might say, Alan on the phone in the parentheses. Okay, and then you would indicate when he hangs up. If we don't hear or see the other person speaking on the other line, then there's no reason to change it. All you have to do is indicate that he was on the phone. No biggie. Okay. However, if Alan calls the ticket office, that's a different story. So let's take a look at what happens if we actually see the other person on the other line. Okay, so Alan takes out his phone, dials a number. Now, because we see him in this scene take out the phone and dial the number, we've established that Alan's the one making the phone call. Now, the next scene is obviously going to be the location where the other person is. So let's say interior stadium box office day. A ticket seller, we'll say he's 20s, doesn't really matter, answers the phone. Okay, now, of course, obviously, because this is the first time we're meeting this character, the audience, that's going to be in all caps, answers the phone. So we've established that this is the second person speaking. I'm going to hit enter/return. Okay, and the character is going to be ticket seller. Thank you for calling Orlando City Soccer. How can I help you? Now, if this ticket seller were to say, my name is John, how can I help you? Then from that point on, the character will be known as John. Okay? Or you might just say John, comma, a ticket seller, and that just cut out ticket seller altogether. Okay, so how can I help you? Now, because we've already established that the person calling is Alan, then we are going to intercut the telephone conversation. When you establish that second location, all you have to do is write intercut telephone conversation. Now, I like to put that in all caps just so it's really clear that the telephone conversation is being intercut. It does not have to be. I've seen it done both ways, and as long as it's clear, that's really all that matters with that. So then Alan would start speaking here. Yeah, hi. I have a situation. I think my tickets are scalped. Okay, so Ada asks, what does that really mean, intercut? So Ada, when if you've ever seen a film where, which I'm sure you have, where they're jumping back and forth between the one person speaking and another person speaking on the phone, that means that they are cutting between the two scenes. They are intercutting. Okay, they're cutting between the two scenes. So that basically means if this whole conversation goes on for about half a page, that means that the director can cut wherever he or she wants to. And it's up to the director where to cut. So you're not saying, okay, now exterior stadium day, back to interior stadium. You know, it just frees up the scene for the director to cut wherever they need to cut. Okay, so that's what intercut telephone conversation means. Like I said, that's only if you need to show the other person on the other end of the line. Oh, okay, so Amanda wants me to add this to notes. Yes. Okay. Intercut telephone conversation. I'm going to put this down into steps. Step 1. Establish who is making the first call in the first location. Step 2. Go to new scene heading, which is the new location. Establish second character. Step 3, indicate intercut telephone conversation. Okay, good. Now, another thing that might pop up is if you have a voiceover. If you have a voiceover and only use this sparingly, I'll talk about that in a second. Let me show you how to format it first. If you have a voiceover, that means that the character is speaking, as a voiceover, sort of outside the scene, kind of narrating. Beside the character's name, you would hit space, hit open parentheses, and notice when I hit open parentheses, all I literally did was hit shift, open parentheses, the smart type menu popped up. We have VO for voiceover, OS means off screen, OC stands for off camera. Let me start with voiceover first. So for voiceover, you would just click voiceover, and that indicates that it's a voiceover. Okay? OS stands for off screen. What that means is that the character is not in the scene. I'm sorry, is in the scene, but is not on screen at the time. Okay? Now, this is sort of very similar to off camera, because the off screen might be like, you can hear the person on the other end of the phone, but you don't see that person. So that might be off screen. Off camera might mean that from off camera in the same scene, someone just sort of barks something out. Like, for example, if two characters are on the soccer field and someone yells a curse word out at someone on the screen, you might say person in stands, and then in parentheses OC, hey, idiot. That would be a good way to use off camera. I don't really ever use off camera, honestly. So I usually just say off screen. But I guess they're really interchangeable. I think there's a rule for it, but that's how I would break down the rule. Ada asks, so that would be Alan if he says something correct. Yes. So if Alan were off screen at the time, then you would say OS for off screen, right? Okay, so I've shown you voiceover. Let me just give you my sort of general tips for using voiceover. And voiceover is one word. Tips for using voiceover, I would say use sparingly. Generally, I mean, we see voiceovers in a lot of movies. Some of the, especially a Morgan Freeman movie, which is wonderful because obviously he's amazing at narrating things. I wish he would narrate my life. But, use sparingly. If you're going to use it, be fresh with it. Have a good sense of voice. Don't use to reveal exposition. Okay. A trap that happens with a lot of writers is that a lot of beginning screenwriters especially, is that they need a way to introduce the audience to, let's say, a fantasy world. And so they have this narrator who goes on and on about what the world is like. Okay, yeah, you've seen it before, it does happen, but blah. It's just blah. It's a cheating way to do it. It's just blah. A better way to use the voiceover were if there were some personality. Like a great voiceover a great example of a voiceover is at the beginning of the movie Easy A with Emma Stone. It begins with a voiceover, and it's a really sarcastic voiceover. And then, a couple of minutes into the movie, we realize that she's actually um, speaking into the camera because she's doing like a YouTube video where she's narrating an event in her life. Okay, and it actually works because it's kind of fresh. So be fresh with your voiceover. Don't use it to reveal exposition. But at the same time, I know that's probably why you're going to be using it. If you have to reveal exposition, be really fresh about it. Like have a really good, fresh sense of personality. Another good example of a movie that used voiceover really well, where it needed to have that exposition because there was a lot of time traveling, was a movie called About Time, came out last year. I'll write these down. For good examples, see About Time and Easy A. Whoops. And I actually use the film Easy A lot because it's structured really well. It uses the Blake Snyder format almost to a T, but it uses it really well and uses it in a kind of fresh way. So you might hear me reference that or see me reference that a few more times in this class. Okay. Let's see here. I've talked about voiceover. I talked about, text messages. If you have a character who text messages, I haven't seen a standard for this yet. I'm sure there will be one soon. But if a character text messages, let's say Alan texts on his phone, and I hit colon, shit, these guys won't move. Okay, I put that in italics just to indicate the text. Okay, again, don't overuse that because that gets boring after a while. Think about when you're writing a screenplay. Remember that you're writing this to be seen by an audience. Think about what bores you in a movie. Like, do you really want to see an entire movie where there's 2 minutes worth of texting back and forth? No. So don't have 2 pages worth of texting. In movies, a page equals 1 minute, roughly. Okay, so a 90-page script is a 90-minute movie, give or take. Okay? So think about, like, do you really want to see like a really, really long dialogue scene? If it's riveting dialogue, yes, okay, bring it on. But if it's just kind of like expositional dialogue, like, hi, how are you? Good, I'm good. How are you? How was your day? Nobody wants to see 2 pages of that, right? So just think about it. Nikki asks, is a good way to insert a text like inserting a letter you want the audience to see? Yeah, the letter trope in a screenplay, can be done a few different ways. You might have the character read it out loud. That might be a good place to use the voiceover so that you have something visual. And if you are forced to have a voiceover, this is another tip. Very important. If you're going to use a voiceover or if you're going to have a character reading a letter, like if it's a period piece, you must accompany it with visuals. Okay, you must accompany a voiceover with strong visuals. That's super, super important. I cannot stress that enough. So if you have like this long monologue that goes on for an entire page and it's all in the middle of the page like dialogue, and there's no visual that goes along with it, which I have seen before, and let me tell you, I have failed those students. Do not do that because you have to have a visual. Do you want to sit there and see a person on screen for, that's going to take longer than a minute to say, but do you want to see someone on screen talk for 1 or 2 minutes about just rambling exposition? No, you don't want to see that. So you got to accompany it with strong visuals. If you are introducing a character, the audience, to a world, like for example, at the beginning of Maleficent, I think Maleficent does actually start with a voiceover. We have very strong visuals in that movie. We see what the world looks like. It's very interesting. There are all these little creatures. There are all these little monsters. And the lead character, the protagonist, is an interesting looking character. So we have strong visuals to accompany the voiceover. If you're going to use a voiceover, you've got to accompany it with strong visuals. Super, super important. Good. Great questions. Any other questions? Feel free to type away in the chat window. As you're doing that, I'm going to show you one more thing up here. When you save it, you have the option to save as a final draft document, which you need to do for your screenplay. Okay. But if you were to save as a PDF, you come up here and it says include title page. You can include the title page. Oh, I need to show you how to do a title page. Okay, doing a title page. Come up here to document title page. And now notice you have the template for a title page. Let's say this title of the script is Soccer Sunday. Okay, written by me. Now, if this were an original screenplay, I would write an original screenplay. If this were an adaptation, I would say based on the play by William Shakespeare. And I know that Shakespeare did not write anything called Soccer Sunday. Okay, down here at the bottom, you would type in, it says address and phone number. A tip from me, super important. I would not include your personal address on your title page. You never know where your script is going to end up. And if there are any crazies out there, don't do that. I would indicate your email address and your telephone number. Okay, that's more professional. So I would indicate my email address and then my telephone number, which, what is my full cell number? It's like 81, we'll just say 555-5555, because I don't remember it. Okay. And then Final Draft will automatically save this document, the title page as is. So all I have to do is X out of it. And when I go to save as PDF and I include the title page, it would include that with it. Now, because you're not submitting this as PDF for the assignment, I want you to format your title page, but notice it's not going to appear, even though there's a title page here, it's not going to actually appear in the document. When I open up the document, it's going to show me page 1. That's okay. Don't retype the title in the body of your script. All I have to do is go up to title page, and guess what? It's there. So I can see what the title of your script is by going up to title page. I will do that myself. Don't try to include the title page. Okay? So, title page. Include your title and email, phone number. Okay. Final Draft will remember. Okay. Eliza asks about the smell issue. What if we show the smell instead of describing it? For example, Eliza looked at the garbage and wrinkled her nose in disgust. Absolutely. That's exactly how you do it. If something smells, let's say that, the douchebags farted, you might hear it. Like, we might actually hear the sound. Or Alan might sort of wrinkle his nose, and that indicates that the character has farted. Okay. That's a great question. Oh, another thing. If we have a sound effect, now this is only a sound effect, something that is added in post-production. And this is really debatable because I've seen a lot of scripts that don't do this, and that's okay too. Like I can get by without seeing it. But if the standard is, let's say the phone rings, so we might say Alan's phone rings. Okay, the object making the noise and then the sound effect itself would get all caps. Let me write that down. Sound effects. Only the object making the noise and the sound itself get all caps. For example, Alan's phone rings. Okay? Now, about specific shots. You will, in your career, see this very often, especially with scripts that you get from the library or from the, if you find them on the internet. A lot of the times what you're seeing are published production drafts, because rarely, very rarely, will a studio release a spec script. That's very, very rare. So a lot of the times what you're seeing is a production draft. So you might actually see scene numbers. You might see really, really long camera directions. That's because the director put them there. That's not how a spec script would look. Sid Field says, yes, don't do it. It's not the writer's job. Exactly. Okay, so rule of thumb, no camera angles. Okay, and be wary of using transitions of like cut to. I'm going to show you just what that looks like, just so you can see it, but I beg of you, please don't do it. Okay? For example, if I wanted to say that this was going to be a dissolve, like we were going to dissolve from one scene to the next, I'm going to say, hold on one second. Where's my smart type? Okay, so I'm down here. Alan's phone rings, and instead of cutting to the next scene, it's going to dissolve to. I'm going to go down here to my menu, or I can hit enter and the smart type menu will come up. Go to transition, okay? And then I would say dissolve to, okay? Or cut to, or jump cut to, or whatever. That's only if you're going to do that. Okay, so I got a couple of questions coming in here. Let me try to answer these. How about writing for TV and crafty TV writing? The writer says it's the writer's job. TV is different. We're talking about screenplays, but good question. When you get to the TV writing class, Julianne White, who is the instructor, she is brilliant, brilliant TV writer. She is going to show you how to format a TV script. It's different. In TV scripts, you will show the act breaks. You will show where the teaser begins and where the teaser ends, and it will literally say end teaser or begin teaser. And in a TV script, you might actually do that. You might actually say that. You might show very specific camera angles, especially if like you're writing for, let's say, Orange is the New Black. Each episode of Orange is the New Black ends with fade to orange. That's just how it ends. So you would actually write that at the end of the script, fade to orange. That would be your transition. So it depends on the show that you're working on. Like, for example, if you guys are going to be writing a spec script for a web series that we are hoping to produce at Full Sail called No Good Deed. And every episode has a smash cut. So you would indicate that in the transition. But that's because you're writing for a specific TV show and the world has already been established. Okay? In a screenplay, though, a spec screenplay, meaning that you are writing it on speculation, no producer has commissioned you to do this. It is your script 100%. Don't do it for that spec script. Later on, if you're working with the director, you've sold your script, and the director wants you to put in some of that stuff, then absolutely, by all means, do it. Okay. Ada asks, how about from changing from one act to another? Not in a screenplay. In a screenplay, you do not indicate the act breaks. In TV, you do. But since we're writing a screenplay here, and right now you're writing a short screenplay, you have no reason to do that. Linda asks, do we need to know before writing how you want the scene to be seen on camera? For example, I want a sequence to use swish pan. No, because don't do that. Let's see here. If you want something to be panned, like if you want to use that camera angle, if you're going to shoot it yourself, by all means do it. But for a spec script, no, don't do it. No pan to, no tilt to, no zoom in, no zoom out, no tracking shots, none of that. It's not your job. That's the director's job. You are the writer. We don't get to make that call. Sometimes, like, there's kind of like an unspoken rule, like you might be allowed one or two specific like angle on or close up to, if like it's really necessary. Like, for example, if there's an object in the room that the audience really needs to know is important, like let's say Alan forgot his phone, we might cut to Alan's apartment, close up on phone. That might be just the one time that you use it, but use it very sparingly, very, very sparingly. I want to just give you a general rule of thumb, because Linda, I think you're implying something here with how do we know what it's going to look like on screen? There's a very simple way to show that. Look at the way that I formatted all of these sentences, all of these descriptions. Alan takes out his phone. What is the subject of the sentence? Alan, right? So guess who the subject of the shot's going to be? Alan. Whatever the subject of the sentence is the subject of the shot. So if we're going, like, go back to filmmaking 101, and I know you're not film students, but, when I was taking film classes and when I taught film classes, I would have my students write out a shot list, right, and like maybe storyboard it. So what do we see in the frame on screen? Whatever the subject of the sentence is what we see on screen. In this case, the ticket seller is going to be the subject of the scene. Okay. If we want to show the phone first, we would say a phone. A ticket seller answers the phone, or answers. Okay, so guess what? The phone is the subject of the shot. We don't need to say close up a phone, right? Because the phone, just writing a phone indicates that's the subject of the shot. Really simple. Really, really basic. So back up here, Alan stands looking at his watch. He's the subject of the shot. It might be a long shot. It might be a medium shot. It might be a close up. Is that our job as the writer? No, not important. Let the director do that. That's what the director or cinematographer for. Okay, great questions. Any other questions? Feel free to pop them in here. I'm going to save this to my desktop just so that I can remember to send this to you. Save to desktop. We'll say 7, what's today? 21? 7/21 AVS online script. Okay, and same thing with notes. 7/21 AVS online session notes. Okay. Robin asks, if a person is talking to himself or herself, would you lead into it? Actually, great question, Robin. What I would do in that case is, that's when I would use the parenthetical. To himself. Whoops. Like that. That's when I would use the parenthetical. Great question. Other questions? Feel free to jump on in. Okay, good. Let's see here. A couple of other things. I mentioned that you're going to be taking a TV class. You're going to also be taking a games writing class. You're going to be taking an animation class. In addition to a screenwriting class, which we're already talking about screenplays, but you get the point. In the TV writing class, you'll also be talking about comic writing and graphic novel writing also, and you'll be talking a little bit more about that in the animation class also. So you're going to have specialty classes that deal with how to format for those specific media. Each medium is going to have its various requirements. I personally write for film and TV, so those are my areas. I can help you through game writing, but I usually kind of pass those on to our specialists in that department. And also with comic book writing, I've graded several of them, and I've actually judged a couple of them for contests, but it's not really my wheelhouse. I do know how to format them, but like I said, it's not really my area of expertise. I certainly read graphic novels and I read their scripts, but it's not really, I don't write them myself, but I will certainly help you if you want to write in those areas. Amanda asks, for the assignment, can we tweak our flash fiction so it fits for the screenplay? For instance, mine was mostly interior. Can I change it but kind of have the same storyline? So in your lesson on short screenplays, which opened up this morning, I have a sort of a test to see if your script is going to work as a flash fiction piece. Not all flash fiction pieces are going to work as short screenplays. That's very important to say. And in some cases in your notes, in some of your feedbacks, I've actually said this will not work as a short screenplay. I haven't said that to everyone because in some cases it might work. It's really going to have to be a test that you give yourself. If you have mostly interior scenes, like they all take place inside, it still can be visual. But if it's mostly internal, like we get a lot of a character's internal thoughts, probably not going to work, right? If it's not going to be like something that's very external, very concrete, probably not going to work. If you have something that's very abstract, like one of you had a flash fiction piece that had a lot of it used sort of code. I can't think of whose it was, but it used like grammatical code, no, like code to indicate like a subtext. That's not going to work in a screenplay. So I would say that would need to get cut out if that person were going to stick with it. Vanna asks, so I wanted to write an animated short. Could I do that, or would you prefer I stick to an action, drama, comedy type script? I would prefer that you stick to a drama or comedy or action type script. We would call that live action. I would prefer a live action script, only because sometimes the animated shorts do need some of the very specific like close-ups and shots and that kind of thing, because you're writing for an animator. It's a little bit different, and you haven't quite learned how to write for that just yet. You'll be learning about that later in the program. But if you want to try it and you think your script is going to work as an animated script, and you want to write for animation, go ahead and try it, and I'll work with you, because I know how to write for that stuff, so I'll help you with it if you want to do it. And if you want to give it a whirl, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit of a different beast, but I'll help you through it. Amanda asks, for instance, adding more dialogue even though it wasn't in the original flash fiction. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, super important. This is one of the things that I do. I adapt things, so that's kind of my wheelhouse. If you the rules with adaptation, just because something doesn't appear in the original work doesn't mean you can't add it in there. Don't feel the need to be a purist. You are going to need to adapt something to fit the new medium. Film is a visual medium. So if you're adapting a very talkative novel, or if you're adapting a very internal novel, you got to find a way to make it work for the screen. So you may have to change things. It just may have to be the way that it goes. So by all means, go for it. And if you're adapting your flash fiction piece, you wrote the flash fiction piece, so you own it. So feel free to change it. Okay, couple of other things. I want to talk a little bit about thesis ideas. I'm going to actually update. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm going to try to get to it tonight. I'm going to update the thesis ideas instructions, that lesson, because I've just substituted last week for one of my colleagues who teaches later in the program. And one of the things I noticed about the television scripts that came through, the teleplays, are that in some cases, they're just not working as TV shows. And I think one of the big reasons is that when you have a TV show, the big thing that makes TV tick is the idea needs to be a situation or a setting that will breed interesting conflict to go on for multiple seasons. And what I mean by that is something like Orange is the New Black was a very interesting concept, right? You've got this woman who goes to jail, she's a waspy woman. She is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant woman who made a mistake like 6 years before, and she turns herself in and she goes to serve her time at this jail, right? So it was kind of a fish out of water story, and that's how it was pitched, okay? When you got something like The Sopranos, okay, it's about a guy who, heads a mafia family, but he's in therapy, right? So that's a unique spin on the situation. When you've got something like Dexter, and I don't watch Dexter, but I know the concept, it's a serial killer who kills other serial killers, and he happens to also work as a blood splatter analyst, right? So that's a unique situation. Don't just pitch me A Girl Goes to College, and that's going to be the TV show. Because guess what? That's been done before. It's called Felicity. So, what's unique about your story? Don't just say, it's a family of vampires. Okay, it's a family of vampires who are trying to be human. Okay, that might be something that's worth it, right? Like, think about what's unique about your TV show situation, okay? And like I said, I'm not really articulating it quite well. I'm just kind of giving you an example, but I'm going to update that that thesis ideas lesson. And you might not write for TV. You might not want to write for TV, so this might not apply to you. But if you do write for TV, I just want to make that a little bit clearer. Okay, a couple of things coming up. Obviously, you're thinking about your thesis ideas. You're writing your short screenplays this week. Like I said, not everything needs to be adapted from your flash fiction piece. You can write a completely original piece if you'd like. They need to be 6 to 8 pages and formatted correctly. Now, I have given you a basic formatting here. Obviously, there are going to be some things that I maybe have just forgotten to cover. I'm not going to be as strict in the first draft about formatting. I will on your second draft, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what you did wrong. If you don't correct it for the second draft, that's when I'm going to dock you. Okay? So I'll be a little lenient. I will not be lenient with grammar, but I will with formatting. So I'm still going to expect you to use commas appropriately, use semicolons, contact the writing center if you need to, make those adjustments if you need to. The Writing Center is a lot of the people that work there are well versed in screenplay formatting. So if you have formatting questions, you can always ask them. You can always ask me if you have any formatting questions. Okay, certainly over the course of the week. One little thing has come up this week that I need to address. I am actually going out of town on Thursday. I'm traveling. I'm not taking vacation time though. So I'm actually still technically going to be working, which means I'm still going to be checking my email and I'm still going to be grading your short screenplays. Okay. So, but I am going out of town. I'm going to upstate New York to see family. So Thursday, I'm actually traveling. I will still check my email Thursday evening once I've gotten to upstate New York, but it's going to be a full day of traveling. We're flying into LaGuardia and then we're driving up from New York City. It's going to be really long and painful, but I'm still going to be checking my email. I'm still going to be doing grading. By Thursday, I will have all of your flash fiction revisions graded, and actually everything that you've turned in so far will be graded. So if you have any questions about your flash fiction piece, if you want me to take another look at your flash fiction piece before you submit it for publication, by all means, ask me. You're certainly welcome to continue to do so. Thursday is going to be a little dicey, so don't expect an immediate response on Thursday. Okay, and like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to send me questions over the weekend. I'll just be away, so I might be in and out. Vanna asks, you said 6 to 8 pages is the complete short, or that's just how much we have to have done? No, yeah, 6 to 8 pages is the complete short screenplay. It should not go on beyond that. It has nothing to do with your thesis. It's completely different. Good question. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to type in the chat window if you have any questions about the program. And of course, obviously, I will send these to you, these documents to you. And I will also try to upload this recording to YouTube. Like I said, it doesn't always take. Sometimes the sound is off. If that is the case, I actually have an older, similar lesson here that you can review. I also have some of the formatting things on Final Draft in the Final Draft lesson. Ada asks, did you say you were giving us screenplay ideas to write about? No, actually, that's completely your idea. All of those are your ideas. I'm not giving you any ideas. Robin asks, I need help also. I don't know what you're asking about. So you'll need to clarify that. Help on what? Okay. A couple of other things. If you have questions about your thesis ideas, or if you have questions about your short screenplay, or feel free to make an appointment with me. I'll be in the office tomorrow. I'll be in the office on Wednesday. So feel free to make an appointment to talk with me if you need to. Robin asks, I have a couple of ideas, but not too many for the screenplay. Okay. Robin, why don't you stick around after we end the session, and I'll unmute you and we can talk about it real quick. Sound good? Okay. And if anyone else has additional questions after I wrap this up, I'm going to stop recording, and then we'll have a conversation. Linda asks, what about subtext? How do you indicate this in a screenplay? Subtext is not something that you, how do I want to say that? Subtext is something that's there, but you don't call your attention to it. So for example, traffic, look at this exchange here in dialogue. Traffic, again, seriously this time, the subtext is that obviously Kevin has been late before, right? There's tension between them. They probably don't trust each other. That's the subtext. Okay, subtext is never something like, look at me, there's subtext here. It's just kind of something that's below the surface. Okay. And we can talk a little bit more about, and I have a couple of great articles about dialogue that I can forward to all of you about writing subtext and that kind of thing. I'll go ahead and I'll send that to you. Amanda asks, so a short screenplay is like a flash fiction in a sense that it covers one moment in time? No. Flash fiction just covers one moment in time, and it is its own separate thing. A short screenplay can cover one moment in time, but it can also cover a bunch of different moments in time. So not all flash fiction pieces can be adapted into short screenplays. Not all short screenplays can be adapted into flash fiction pieces, if that makes sense. Yeah, because actually, a great thing for you to do is to go on, if you have Netflix, go on and look at thank you, Eliza. Go on to Netflix if you have Netflix, or even if you want to check the library for this. There are short film collections. I just watched this week, and it was brilliant. The 2005 Oscar-nominated shorts on Netflix, and it had obviously all of the animated shorts and all of the live-action shorts, and obviously the winners also. And there were some brilliant short screenplays and short films on there. So, be on the lookout for those. You Netflix them, check our library for short films. We produce short films all the time here. I've been in some of them. I've seen tons of them here at Full Sail. Some of them are good. Some of them are not so good. Some of them are terrible. You learn from everything, right? Okay. Ada said, yes, I did talk about a lot of things that I didn't write into my notes. That's just for efficiency. Hopefully this archive will take and you can just listen to it over again. I'll have to check that out, Nikki. 3 films by Norman Reedus. Interesting. Okay. Any final questions before I wrap this up and stop recording? Okay, I'm going to shut this down here. Okay. And if you have, like I said, a lot of you are submitting your flash fiction pieces, and I just want to give you an example. I had a student 3 months ago, I think, who submitted her flash fiction piece to me, her revision, and it's still, I think it got like an 85, and it still wasn't up to par. She ended up doing 3 more revisions on that flash fiction piece, and then she submitted it for publication, and it got published. So you might not, even on this revision, be close to publishing, close to be ready to being it published. But if you keep at it, in a lot of cases, you'll get there. I go through many drafts of things. The first screenplay for me that really took off had 22 drafts. 22 drafts. And so, it actually finally started to make some headway, and it got before producers, and I pitched it to producers, and it got a lot of interest, and it won things. Actually, I actually made money off of it, which was great. It was never produced, Linda, but thanks for asking. It was never actually produced, but it got far. It got close. I had short screenplays produced and that sort of thing, but my point is that sometimes for it to work, you will go through several drafts, several drafts. And that includes like grammar passes. That screenplay alone had 4 different structural rehashes, like where I literally started over 4 different times. And I had a co-writer too, which was interesting. Okay. Good. So basically that's it. If you have additional questions, I will, stick around and I'll unmute you and we can take care of that. Ada asks, when do we receive our second flash fiction piece? I am in the process of grading them. I've graded, I want to say 7 of them already. You will get them no later than Wednesday. All right, so I'm going to stop recording. You feel free to keep asking